are all the times when Peter should have divorced Lois Griffin on Family Guy. Kicking things off at number 5, Lois takes presidential affair to a whole new level when she hooks up with Bill Clinton. In this unfortunate episode from season 5, a rather famous political figure shows up in Quahog for, questionable reasons.
In other news, former President Bill Clinton was in town today to judge Quahog's annual Miss Cankle USA contest.
Now that's a cankle. Where does the calf fat end and the ankle fat begin?
But for some reason, the notoriously handsy former president's limo breaks down in front of the Griffin residence, and his security asks Peter for some help. Next thing you know, Billy and Peter end up becoming best buddies. But it turns out that Bill isn't exactly the best influence on Peter.
We could eat that pig. What? Dude, come on. We could totally eat that pig.
Okay, before any angry vegans break out the pitchfork, let me just say that Bill and Peter don't end up eating that pig, they just steal it. That's, better, right? Now, you might be wondering where Lois comes into all of this. Well, she finds him looking pretty rough the next day, but then she gets real mad when she finds out he brought a random pig home. She decides to head to Bill's hotel room to tell him off for corrupting her sweet, innocent idiot of a husband. Big mistake.
Well, you certainly are very persuasive.
So I've been told.
Just as Lois starts to realize how badly she messed up, Peter literally walks in on her and Bill in bed together. He's understandably shocked, though it takes him a second to realize what he's looking at. Lois rushes back to Peter begging for his forgiveness, and she tells him he can sleep with anyone he wants to get back to her. Any guesses on who he'll pick?
Babs.
My mother?
In the end, Lois has no choice but to let Peter live his twisted fantasy.
Peter, are you sure this is what you want?
Yeah, I'll see you at home.
But get this, Peter doesn't end up sleeping with Lois's mom. Instead, he finds himself seduced by Bill Clinton as well. Coming in hot at number 4, Lois makes the absolutely unhinged decision to hit on Meg's boyfriend. Okay, I know what you guys are wondering. Meg has a what?
No, really, I have a boyfriend. His name is Anthony.
Yeah, that sounds real sus to me. But I guess I'm wrong, because Anthony is not just real, he's a pretty normal kid. Peter and Lois are super stoked that Meg finally found herself a decent guy, but things start to get hairy when the kid lays the charm on Mrs. Griffin.
Has anybody ever told you you're pretty enough to be a movie star, Mrs. Griffin?
Lois is flattered, of course, but this innocent little compliment seems to get to her head, and before you know it, she starts veering into some real creepy territory.
Oh my god, that's kinda hot.
Is she drunk? No, that's just sober Lois for you. She seems to forget that Anthony's underage and starts to fantasize about the poor guy. I think we all know where this is headed. I'll say one thing about Lois. She does not waste any time. One fine evening, she decides to give Anthony a little token of her affection.
Your husband's work and poker game schedule?
My menstrual cycle's on there too, but I don't mind if you don't.
So, after successfully getting Meg out of the house, the self-proclaimed cougar of Quahog straight up tells Anthony about her feelings. Surely that grossed the kid out, right?
Wow, this is so cool. I've never had a MILF come on to me before.
But hey, at least Meg will never find out.
Mom, I forgot my keys. Do you know where?
You can probably guess how Meg feels about this. Lois has to take the walk of shame up to her room to try and make it up to her, but that's just the first step. She still has to tell Peter what she tried to pull, but once again, things don't go the way you'd expect. Lois tells Peter that he makes her feel old and ugly, which seems like a pretty manipulative way to confess trying to sleep with your daughter's boyfriend, but instead of getting upset, Peter apologizes to her for his behavior, and boom, that's that. I mean, have some backbone, my guy. The only way this should have ended starts with D and rhymes with schmivorse. Next up at number 3, Lois goes off the rails at the first sign of a poker machine. It all starts when Chris has some trouble with the Boy Scouts. I mean, putting that tub of lard in the Boy Scouts in the first place is ridiculous, but hey, it's not the worst idea Peter's ever had. But the thing is, Peter's a little too obsessed with his son being a Boy Scout. He even makes him a little crazy boxcar for the soapbox derby. Of course, things do not go according to plan. Chris jumps the gun, and his troop leader nearly becomes a smear on the road. Unsurprisingly, Chris is kicked out of the Scouts for being an absolute moron, but
Don't take no for an answer, Chris. You're a Griffin, and a Griffin never knows when to stop.
next thing you know, the Griffins are headed for the Youth Scout head office in New York. Sounds pretty simple, right? If only.
Peter, we're lost. Would you please find some place to ask for directions?
Unfortunately, Peter's simply not having it. He won't be caught dead asking for directions, but why, Peter? Why?
'Cause I'm a man.
Oh, seems legit. Unfortunately, Peter's pig-headedness is derailed by some absolutely random crap.
What was that?
Nothing.
Peter, the car is making funny noises.
Yep, that's not the car. It turns out that Peter had a prune smoothie right before heading out a road trip, which is just an impressive level of stupidity right there. The only place where Peter can, relieve himself is an Indian casino. He runs off to find a bathroom, leaving Lois with some free time on her hands. She tries asking for directions, but the glint of a nearby poker machine catches her eye. That's just so great for someone with zero impulse control. Fast forward just a few minutes, and Lois is absolutely hooked. Like, Peter has to literally drag her away from the machine. But things take a turn for the worse when they go outside. outside.
But here's the really silly thing, Peter. I sort of bet our car.
Yep, Lois lost the family car because she thought the poker machine's lights looked pretty. Peter has to pretend to be a Native American and spend a night going hungry in the forest to prove it. Now, by some miracle, he pulls this off, and the casino owners have to give back the car, but honestly, I don't know how Peter and Lois's marriage survived this. At our number 2 spot, Lois reads one book about minimalism and goes absolutely ballistic. This time around, it's not Lois's insatiable sex drive that gets her in trouble, it's just the fact that she tends to take things way too far. Take minimalism, for example. Pretty cool, right? I mean, I'm into all that declutter your life stuff, so I get why Lois got all worked up when she heard about Trisha Takanawa's new book.
It's called Throw It Away, the life-improving art of decluttering. People nowadays own too much stuff. I am encouraging them to throw it away.
Okay, I guess that sounds legit. And when Trisha clarifies that you can keep items that bring you joy, the whole thing makes a lot more sense. Hey, where'd you learn this stuff anyway? A scientific study, perhaps?
It's very simple. I came up with it after hiking to the top of Mount Asia and meditating on Epiphany Bridge.
Yikes, that doesn't sound like great advice anymore, but of course, Lois is mesmerized by that mystical Asia top. And since this is Quahog's most insane housewife we're talking about, she takes the whole minimalism thing to the extreme. Lois is on the warpath here, and she's gonna stop at nothing to max out her joy.
You throwing me away?
Yes.
But get this, Lois is not stopping there. Pretty soon, she's kicked everyone out of the house and into a storage unit. There's only one thing left to throw out: herself. The next day, the discarded Griffins show up and find an empty house with a vague note from Lois. It takes falling into a trash barge for Lois to realize that the clutter wasn't the problem after all.
Everything's fine! I was saved by garbage! I'm garbage! Everything's garbage, and garbage is wonderful!
Well, at least she let her family come home now. Maybe that's the best we could have hoped for. And last but not least, we've got the time Lois's birthday meltdown led to her crushing on an underage Justin Bieber. Cause apparently, nothing screams midlife crisis like borderline felonies. It all starts when Brian reminds Lois that her big day's coming up. Lois seems pretty down about the whole thing.
You know, it's funny. You keep so busy with your kids, time just seems to slip away, and then you turn around one day and you...
Okay, bye. Stop making noise.
Yeah, real classy, Peter. Honestly, that's the kind of thing that'll make anyone want to step out, but things have only just started heating up. Realizing how upset she is, Brian had the bright idea to throw Lois a surprise birthday party. I'm sure this is gonna work out super well for everybody. Didn't think so. But here's the thing. Lois is actually really happy about the whole thing. Maybe things will work out after all. They won't, of course, because this is Family Guy after all, and things start to go sideways when Peter reads Lois, interesting poem talking about how old Lois has gotten. The man just keeps going, and by the end of his poem, Lois looks about ready to walk into oncoming traffic. So what does Lois do? Dump Peter and get her life together? If only. Lois disappears the next day and comes back looking 20 years younger. Well, not really, but she gets some credit for trying. Except she doesn't because she's a middle-aged mother for crying out loud. But things are only going to get worse from here. Lois catches wind of Justin Bieber coming to town, and in her midlife crisis-induced teen brain, she shows up on camera to cheer him on. Little does she know her family's watching her acting like an absolute moron on live TV.
Look.
That's Mom!
Oh my God. What the hell? She's at a Justin Bieber concert?
But Lois isn't just there for the music. Nope, she wants to get up close and personal with Justin, who still looks like he's about 13 years old. Long story short, Lois shows up at Justin's green room hoping to get some action. After bribing that security guard with some ice cream, she manages to get inside, and the results are about what you'd expect. Lois is clearly looking to make the moves on Bieber, who clearly has no idea what's going on. The super cringe-inducing encounter veers straight into illegal territory with this exchange.
Just get your pants off, hon.
Luckily, or maybe unluckily for poor Justin, Peter shows up just in the nick of time and takes the kid to Pound Town. And after having a heart-to-heart with Lois where he confesses his own insecurities, Quahog's least compatible couple kiss and make up. But honestly, if I were in Peter's shoes, I'd have gotten out of that marriage pronto.